We are shocked to report to you that the supercommittee has failed to reach an agreement. Is this business as usual in Washington? I'm Alan Barton. Stand by for Front Page. Joining me in the studio, Terry Jones, Associate Editor for Investors Business Daily, and that's it. Yaron Brook is locked in his car, and we're not helping him get out. So it's an intimate Front Page today. It's Front Page, turn off the dark today. It's just me and Terry. All right, so this bipartisan supercommittee failed to reach this agreement. So what happened here? Tell us the sort of the 101 on it. What happened with the negotiation?
Well, basically, I mean, this was a result of that brutal negotiation last summer over the debt ceiling cap, and they said, well, yeah, sure, we'll talk about fixing the budget, but we're not going to agree to any tax hikes. Well, of course, the Democrats' bottom line was we've got to get the Republicans to agree to a tax hike, because if we don't, we'll have nothing to run on in the next campaign. And of course, it didn't work. Republicans refused to agree to a tax hike, and the Democrats really didn't make any meaningless cuts.
Well, it looks as though, even though along the way they did agree to at least increase tax revenue, but not through a rate increase through tax reform.
That's right.
But they wanted to try to get an extra $300 billion into the system, and that was not good enough for the Democrats. They wanted a rate increase, and specifically on wealthy Americans.
Yes, they wanted an actual rate increase, one that, by the way, would have destroyed the economy, or at least made it a lot more sickly. So it was a no-go for the Republicans from the very start, unless the Democrats were really serious about cutting things.
All right. Well, the president commented on the supercommittee falling apart. Let's take a look.
This kind of balanced approach to reducing our deficit, an approach where everybody gives a little bit and everyone does their fair share, is supported by an overwhelming majority of Americans. To their credit, many Democrats in Congress were willing to put politics aside and commit to reasonable adjustments that would have reduced the cost of Medicare, as long as they were part of a balanced approach. But despite the broad agreement that exists for such an approach, there are still too many Republicans in Congress who have refused to listen to the voices of reason and compromise that are coming from outside of Washington.
All right, there we have it. Balanced approach. Those are the key words. Balanced approach. The only ones he left out were shared sacrifice. Shared sacrifice is the other one. Balanced approach, shared sacrifice. Welcome to the 2012 presidential campaign. Anything you have to say on his comments there? I mean, I don't think he has been able to say a positive thing about a single Republican in Congress since the man entered office.
No.
It's just, I mean, it's become almost comic that he will not cede anything. He will not actually engage with anyone opposite.
No, nor will he. I mean, he has, at this point, I don't think he feels he has any interest in it, but his comments are farcical. I mean, look, this is a guy who proposed a budget last February that was so bad, it was laughed out of the Senate by everyone. No Democrat voted for it. It was
98 to 0.
98, 97 zip. But
97 zip, and then 3 of them were dead.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
3 of them
in a coma.
were unable to show up.
With Yaron locked in his car.
Exactly.
You know, nothing. Nobody.
Nothing.
And then he gets up there, and he affects this tone, and it's staggering. And it seems that he has, complicity from the press. Do they buy into it? Why is it that he continues to get away with this kind of demagoguery? Because it seems so transparent.
It really is, and the media have coddled him on this. I mean, look, after the debt ceiling talks last summer, he has spent his time gallivanting around the world, spending almost a month on vacation, doing everything other than talking to people in Congress about getting a deal. So if he was serious about getting a deal, he could have done some more.
Well, there's sort of murmurings, because there are murmurings from the Democratic side that he's not engaged. He doesn't seem to enjoy politics.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't enjoy shaking hands and getting in there and, as they say, making the sausage.
He's
he's sort of remote out there in the White House, and Democrats themselves aren't hearing from him.
Yeah, he's the most unleaderly leader we've had in a long, long time, probably since Jimmy Carter.
So going back to 2008, we go back to all that year, there was just a sense of like, well, do we really know who this guy is? Has he really been vetted? And I think it comes out here where you see like the process of government just completely stalled, and he's just uninvolved in this. In the process.
What was his experience before this? I mean, he had no executive experience whatsoever, which means he had no leadership experience. All he did was he was a street organizer and lucked into a couple of big political positions, and he has never led people and never managed a big bureaucracy. He has no idea. He's completely lacking in those skills.
I don't think the guy could manage a small shop of just merchandise. Name your merchandise. I don't think he can manage it. He'd be the one that like everyone just goes in the back room and goes like, who is this guy who came in as manager? He's insane. He doesn't know a thing. All right, let's get to some of the consequences here. In response to the failure of the supercommittee, a U.S. debt downgrade may well be on the table. Fitch, the third leading credit agency, said in August that a failure by the supercommittee would likely result in negative action. Do you think that's the case? Is there going to be a downgrade based on this, or do we have the context in relation to what's going on in Europe that makes what's going on with us seem less bad?
I think the fact that they did not sign on to a economy-killing tax hike actually decreases, and I'm probably in a minority on this, actually decreases the chances of a downgrade. And when you look at what was really being proposed here, at the end of 10 years, instead of $5.4 trillion in spending, we would have spent $5.3 trillion in spending. Mm-hmm. The cuts that they were making were virtually non-existent. It was a total joke from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people said this was doomed to failure and this was a big setup so that you set up the terms on the campaign, for the campaign. Mm-hmm. They're going to run against these Republicans, as you see, these heartless, resistant, recalcitrant Republicans. But when you look at the scope of the actual problem, and the extra constitutional nature of this supercommittee, I mean, whoever said that 12 people are going to say what's going to go on in America? It seemed very odd. So I was in a way glad to see it go down because now there's going to be a dialogue in this country about hopefully, what is the proper role of government? How much do we want to spend? Here's what we're spending right now. American people, tell us which direction you want to go.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully we also have a conversation, and with our current media constituted as it is, it's highly unlikely, but about the malfeasance of Congress, because it's now 940 days, give or take a day, since they passed a budget. Now, under the 1974 Budget Act, they are required every year to pass a budget. Mm-hmm. Required by law. They haven't done it. They had commanding.
This is the Democratic Senate.
This is Democratic Senate and House. They had 2 years where they had total control of all the branches of government. They did not pass a budget. Why didn't they pass a budget? Because they were afraid of the political consequences. This is political cowardice of the highest form, and they're fiddling while Rome burns.
Yeah, and all this talk about cuts, we're just talking about the cuts in the expansion of government. We're still not talking about government spending being X, and at the end of this process, it will be less than X.
If we could just go back...
We're not talking about that. No one's talking about that.
If we could just go back to government as it was before the bailouts, before the stimulus, before all the crap they've layered onto our spending.
Yeah, but that was way back in 2007. There were children dying in the streets, Terry. I mean, we were barely surviving as a country back in 2000 with,
Good
what
point.
was it, 2.5 trillion in spending?
2.7.
2.7 in 2000, yeah. If we could just get back to those horrible days when we were all fighting for survival in the streets. All right, Terry, thanks. I'm Alan Barton. You've been watching Front Page.